Do you find yourself looking to create the perfect Halloween snack board, but you're not sure how to go about it? That used to be me, and I am so excited to share my tips in this video to help you create your own this season. My name's Tiffany, and I help busy millennials create quick, healthy meals in minutes so they have more time to enjoy life as they wish. In this video, we are going to discuss how to create the perfect wine, cheese, and chocolate spread for your next spooky gathering this season. But that's not all. I also have a super simple strategy to help you create the perfect wine pairing experience to go along with your next meal, so be sure to stick around until the end. So let's get started. Now, first, let's discuss how and why these pairings work before we dive into some examples. So, when it comes to pairing wine with foods, you first want to look at the intensity and match that intensity of the wine with the foods that you're looking to pair it with. So, a bold wine can overwhelm a delicate cheese or candy, just as a rich chocolatey candy can overpower that subtle wine. So we want to find ones that match in those intensities so that way they don't overpower each other. So you're going to want to pair lighter candies with those crisp, fruit-forward wines, and your more rich, chocolatey candies with those bold, intense wines. This is going to allow them to balance each other out without one overpowering the other. Now, you also want to match the flavors. So look at the flavors of that food. In this case, we're talking chocolate and cheese. So look at the flavors that are in that candy, in the cheese, and look for a wine that has similar flavors or tasting notes. So think fruity candies. You'll want to find a fruity wine that is going to match that same flavor. If you have some chocolate or caramel candy, you want to find a wine that has those same notes of cocoa and caramel sweetness to match the flavors of that candy and that cheese. But don't be afraid to experiment just a little bit and have fun with it. This is one of my favorite parts when it comes to pairing, because there's always a gray area, especially because one person's taste buds are going to differ from another. So don't be afraid to experiment. For example, try a bold red wine, a few sips on its own, and then add some creamy chocolate, take a few more sips. Maybe add some peanut butter or mint to the mix and notice how that flavor profile changes from the beginning to the end of you having that candy bar. You just might discover a new favorite food pairing that you never knew existed. Now, before we dive into some of these examples, I want to hear from you. What is your favorite candy this time of year? Drop it in the comments below. I look forward to reading your answers and offering some of my personal recommendations on what wines would pair best with that specific candy. So first, we're going to dive into some white wine examples. Now, one of many people's favorites, but not everyone's, is candy corn, which is going to pair best with a Chardonnay. And when it comes to cheese, a truffle cheese is going to be the perfect combination with that Chardonnay and that candy corn. So the sweet, buttery notes of the Chardonnay, especially if it's one that has been aged in oak, is going to accent the honey flavor of the candy corn, and it's going to cut through the tanginess of that truffle cheese. So together, they're going to create a delicious combination. Now, when it comes to fruity candy, a Riesling is going to be your best option, especially when pairing it with a rennet cheese. So the fruity notes of the wine are going to match the fruity flavors of the candy, And it's also going to help that cheese just melt on your tongue with that combination. When it comes to sour candy, we need a wine that is going to stand up to the intensity of those sour flavors. And that is going to be a Sauvignon Blanc, which is super crisp and acidic on its own. So that citrus acidity of the wine is going to match that tangy punch of the sour candy, while pairing it with a creamy mascarpone cheese is going to also match the sweet finish of that sour candy once the sour coating has come off. It's also going to accent the citrus and herbal notes of that Sauvignon Blanc wine. So just as the example before, you're going to notice the wine, the candy, and the cheese all changing as they go through those first few sips of intensity to mellowing out at the end. When it comes to a caramel candy, a sparkling wine such as a Prosecco or a Brut champagne is going to be the perfect combination, especially when you pair this with a Gouda cheese. So the sweet bubbles are going to cut through that creamy caramel, as well as accent its sweetness and mellow out the intensity of the Gouda to a creamy, nutty flavor. And then we have rosé wine, which is the perfect balance to the sweetness of your red licorice. And then you grab yourself a nice fruit cheese to go along with that combination. So think your cheddars that have chunks of strawberry or mango in them when pairing it with that rosé and that red licorice. All of those juicy notes are going to blend together and match perfectly while accenting the fruitiness of that cheese for the perfect trio. Now, before we dive into the red wines, I want to remind you to hit that subscribe button because I'm dropping videos like this all the time, and I would hate for you to miss out on the next tip or trick shared right here inside my tasting room. Now, one of my favorite red combinations is a Pinot Noir with a chocolate wafer candy and a sharp cheddar cheese. It's the juicy red notes from that wine are going to accent the creamy chocolate while bringing out some flavors of that wafer, but it's also going to decrease the sharpness of the cheddar for the perfect cheesy chocolate fruity balance. When it comes to peanut butter chocolates, a Cabernet Sauvignon is your best option, especially when you add some blue cheese to this combination. So the cocoa nutty notes from the wine are going to perfectly accent that nutty peanut butter candy, as well as match the tanginess of the blue cheese, resulting in a nutty, creamy concoction. When it comes to dark chocolate, either plain or with some additions to it, a nice California Zinfandel is the perfect option, especially when pairing it with some creamy brie. So the spicy berry notes from the wine are going to accent that creamy dark chocolate flavor, as well as the creaminess of the brie. And if you want to bring that to a whole next level experience, bake the brie with some fresh strawberries or some raspberry habanero sauce, and you will probably find yourself in love with a whole new combination. It is so good. One of my go-tos for New Year's Eve is that specific combination. And then we have our port and dessert wines, which go best with a chocolate caramel candy and a chocolate cheese. Now, if you have not tried chocolate cheese, go to the cheese counter at your local grocery store and request it. Everyone needs to try this. And when you pair that chocolate cheese with the chocolate caramel candy and that port or dessert wine, everything mimics the same level of sweetness and creates a luscious, decadent finish together. Truly amazing. So with the right wine pairings, you can transform that bag of sweets and that basic cheese board into a sophisticated, memorable experience for everyone to enjoy. So pour yourself a glass of wine, unwrap your favorite treat, and savor how wine can make each bite taste even better. And if you're ready to keep that going, here are 3 tips to help you create the perfect wine pairing to go along with your next meal. Number 1 is to remember, typically, red goes with red and white goes with white. Now, this isn't always the case, but generally speaking, red wine will go best with your red meat and your red tomato-based sauces. White wine will go best with your white meats and your cheesy garlic Alfredo type sauces. But that's not always the case, which leads us to tip number 2, and that is to consider those sides and seasonings. So when it comes to creating the perfect, well-rounded experience, you need to look at the meal as a whole, not just the entree, not just the side dishes, but everything together as a whole, and look for similar flavors to then match the flavors in that wine. And number 3 is sweet likes heat. So if you have a spicy dish, think Mexican, Indian, Asian cuisine, you want a sweet wine, either red or white, to go with that spiciness. And that sweet wine is actually going to cut back on the intensity of the spiciness, making it bearable for those of you that prefer more of a Minnesota heat type level of spice. If you're looking to accent that spice instead, grab yourself a dry wine and it will do just that. But remember, you have been warned. So if you're ready to learn even more about food and wine pairing and get dinner on the table faster, be sure to check out my freebies in the description below and download the one that is going to help you save the most time in your kitchen right away today.